Good afternoon, it's Richard Genoway talking about the spring oat trials that we've got here. These were sown really at the end of March, so a little bit late, so they're a little bit shorter than we would hope and expect, but the cool conditions that we had in cool wet conditions in May have allowed a reasonable amount of growth in what we've got here. But just running through what we've got varieties that are on the recommended list. The variety Canyon, which has been there now for about 10 years or so, still got very good mildew resistance and suitable as far as milling is concerned, particularly the further north and when you get up into Scotland. Then the variety Conway, which is relatively late flowering but reasonably early maturing and sort of average sort of mildew resistance there. Then the variety Aspen, which again has been around for a year or two, mostly being grown as a feed variety. Variety Yukon, which is a development of variety Canyon with very good mildew resistance there. And then the variety Elian, which was added to the recommended list 2 or 3 years ago. Very high kernel content with this variety, and therefore suitable for milling, but has been a little bit variable in its performance in trials. And whilst it's got good properties as far as milling is concerned, there is a little bit of a concern as far as the variety is concerned there. Moving on to the variety Delphin, again very good mildew resistance, high yield, the highest yielding variety currently on the list, more of a feed variety than for milling. Then the variety Ellison, which again has been around for a little time now, mostly being grown as a feed. Then we move on to the variety Isabel, which was added to the recommended list last year. Very good kernel content, quite high yielding, and a fair amount of interest as far as the millers are concerned in this variety. It's really going to, its success is probably going to depend on what sort of performance it gives from this year's harvest and how consistent it is in what has really been quite a different season to one that we've seen for a year or two. And then moving on to 2 varieties that are coming up for recommendation this year. The variety Merlin, which has got quite a good yield, and the variety Lion, which has got a very high kernel content and really quite a lot of interest as far as the millers are concerned. Didn't have quite such a good year in terms of yield last year, but if we see a little bit more yield in the variety this year, and the kernel content and the milling quality is good, yeah, that really could become quite an interesting new variety, I think, as far as spring oats are concerned. Moving on to varieties that are in the first year of the recommended list trials, we've got the variety Tasman, which again has got milling quality. Unfortunately, it's not a particularly good plot, a few establishment issues there. And then the variety Scotty, which is a white oat, looking pretty well. And then 2 other varieties, RGT Vaughan, which has got fairly good yield, and the variety Armani, which is relatively early in terms of development and harvest there. So that's what we've got coming through as far as the husk varieties are concerned at the moment. There are then 4 naked oat varieties, the variety Lennon, which is a year 4 candidate there, and then the newer varieties Madison Camel and Oliver. Lower yielding than the husk varieties by around about 25 to 35% or so, but you haven't got, they don't need dehulling in order to be used there. And then finally a note from the breeders Nordsat, who produce the Canyon, the Delphin and the Lion that we've seen there. This is a variety in the second year of national list testing, along with I think it's around about 40 varieties this year in the combined recommended and national list trials. So more material coming forward for oat growers to look at, and hopefully we'll get a good set of data from the trials this year.